The story begins in an abandoned, desolate market. There, we see a family silently collecting essential supplies. They are so terrified that they do not speak to one another at all, communicating only through hand signals. It is clear that something horrific has happened, something so dangerous that even the slightest sound could put their lives at risk. The head of the family is Lee, and his wife's name is Evelyn. Their eldest daughter, Regan, was born deaf. They also have two sons, Marcus and the youngest, Bo. Because of his young age, Bo does not fully understand the severity of the situation. As he looks up at a shelf in the store, he notices a toy rocket. When he tries to grab it, the rocket suddenly slips from his hand. At that moment, everyone's heart nearly stops in fear, as if their breathing freezes. But just in time, Regan quickly reaches out and catches the toy, saving them all from imminent danger. Lee signals to the family that evening is approaching and they must return home quickly or they will be in serious trouble. Just then, 4-year-old Bo picks up the toy rocket again. This makes everyone even more anxious because the rocket is battery operated and could make noise if turned on. Lee immediately takes the toy from Bo, removes the batteries, and places them on the table. The family then begins their journey back home. However, Bo keeps insisting on taking the rocket with him. To calm him down, Regan quietly hands him the toy without the batteries, and they all leave the store together. Unnoticed by anyone, Bo secretly picks up the batteries as well. As they walk home, we see them moving in a single line. A place that was once filled with the sound of cars, crowds of people, and bright lights is now completely deserted. There is no noise anywhere, not even the sound of birds. An overwhelming and terrifying silence dominates everything. Only a handful of people remain alive on Earth, and this family of 5 is among them. On the way home, it is revealed that they have spread a narrow path of sand leading to their house, and everyone walks barefoot on it so that even the faintest sound of footsteps is avoided. Little Bo walks behind Regan, happily holding the toy rocket. Suddenly, he inserts the batteries into the rocket and turns it on. Instantly, cheerful music begins to play from the toy. Because Regan cannot hear, she remains unaware of the sound, but Lee and Evelyn hear it and freeze in terror. At that very moment, a horrifying creature charges out of the dense forest at lightning speed and lunges toward Bo. Lee runs desperately toward his son, trying to stop the toy, but it is already too late. The creature snatches little Bo and disappears into the darkness. The story then jumps forward by 1 year. During this time, Lee and his family have learned how to survive in this terrifying world. Lee has built a research lab inside their home where he collects and studies all available information about the creatures. We learn that these creatures are so sensitive that they can detect even the slightest sound from several kilometers away. The creatures are completely blind, but their sense of hearing is extraordinarily sharp. They can detect even the smallest vibration in the air or the faintest noise. Even a heavy breath can alert them, and within seconds, they will rush toward the source and kill the person making the sound. Their skin is tougher than steel, making bullets and conventional weapons completely useless against them. Through his research, Lee discovers that about a year ago, these creatures arrived on Earth via a meteorite from outer space. In a very short time, they spread across the entire planet and wiped out nearly all of humanity. The only way to survive is to remain absolutely silent. Lee and his family understand this truth, which is why they have managed to stay alive. Lee installs CCTV cameras around the house to detect the creatures before they get too close. Inside the house, special markings are placed on staircases and walking paths to prevent accidental noise. He also builds an underground bunker where he continues his research on the creatures. Through his studies, Lee learns that there are 3 creatures roaming in their area. His only goal now is to discover their weakness. At the same time, he continuously sends distress signals across the world using a radio. Unfortunately, despite all his efforts, he has not yet been able to make contact with any other surviving humans. Here, we learn that Evelyn is pregnant and will soon give birth to a child. But in this world, the arrival of a newborn means extreme danger because a baby will inevitably cry, and that sound alone is enough to attract the creatures. To prepare for this, the family builds a soundproof box in advance for the unborn baby. The plan is that whenever the baby cries, they will place an oxygen mask on the child and hide it inside the box, ensuring that the sound of the crying cannot escape and reach the monsters. In such a deadly situation, being constantly prepared to survive is absolutely essential. However, Lee's eldest daughter, Regan, is deaf since birth, and this vulnerability could become a serious threat to her life in the future. Because of this, Lee tries to find a solution. He builds a cochlear hearing amplifier for Regan
Regan and gives it to her, hoping it will help her hear. But Regan is not happy when she receives the amplifier. She believes it will fail just like the previous ones. In the past, Lee had made several hearing devices for her, but none of them worked properly. Frustrated and angry, Regan throws the amplifier away. Later, when she tests it again, she realizes that this one actually works. As the sounds of the outside world finally reach her ears, Regan becomes overwhelmed with emotion and breaks down in tears of joy. At the same time, memories of her younger brother Bo come rushing back. Even now, Regan blames herself for his death. She believes that if she had not given Bo the toy rocket that day, he would still be alive. Wanting to prove herself and regain her father's trust, Regan decides to help Lee with his work. She tries to go toward the underground bunker Lee built, but Lee immediately stops her and forbids her from entering. Ever since the incident when Regan gave the toy rocket to her younger brother, Lee has been unable to fully trust her. Lee is afraid because the bunker contains microphones, radios, and many sensitive devices. Even a small mistake could create sound, and that tiny noise could put all of their lives in danger. The next day, Lee prepares to go fishing at the river with his son Marcus. Regan also wants to go with them and asks her father to take her along, but Lee refuses. He says that Evelyn will be alone at home, so Regan must stay behind to look after her mother. When Lee and Marcus leave for the river, Regan is deeply hurt and overwhelmed with anger. She begins to feel that her father does not love her. Driven by this pain, she packs her bag and leaves the house. She goes straight to the place where her younger brother Bo was killed by the creature. Lying down beside her brother's grave, she breaks down in tears and, after some time, falls asleep there. Meanwhile, Evelyn is completely alone at home. After a while, she goes down to the basement to do laundry and carries the clothes outside in a sack. At that moment, a nail attached to the stairs catches on the sack and slowly rises upright. The sharp nail sticks out exactly where Evelyn is about to step, but tragically, she does not notice it. At the same time, Lee and Marcus are fishing by the river. After a while, Lee takes his son to a nearby waterfall. He tells his son that they can talk freely there because the loud sound of the waterfall will drown out their voices, preventing the creatures from hearing them. Sitting beside the waterfall, father and son begin to talk. Marcus asks his father whether he blames Regan for Bo's death. Lee replies that what happened to Bo was no one's fault, but Marcus explains that Regan still blames herself for her brother's death and that their father should reassure her and make her understand that she was not responsible. At that very moment, back at the house, Evelyn is sitting with a photograph of her deceased son in her hands. As she silently sheds tears in his memory, suddenly and without warning, Evelyn goes into labor. The time for her delivery has arrived. Holding the framed photograph of her deceased son in her hands, Evelyn hurried toward the basement, but as she stepped onto the stairs, she accidentally drove her foot straight onto the sharp nail. A wave of unbearable pain shot through her body, yet she did not allow a single sound to escape her mouth. However, the photo frame slipped from her hands, fell down the stairs, and shattered with a loud crash. Despite the excruciating pain, Evelyn somehow managed to pull her foot free from the nail. Her face turned completely red from the agony, but she maintained absolute control and did not scream even once. She knew that a single sound would mean certain death. Limping badly, she made her way down and turned on the light switch, causing a red warning light to illuminate outside the house. She then began climbing back upstairs. At that moment, she saw something so terrifying that her breath nearly stopped. The monstrous creature had already reached their home. It had heard the sound of the falling picture frame. Trembling with fear, Evelyn quickly hid behind a wall. Meanwhile, Lee and Marcus were returning home after fishing. From a distance, they saw the red lights glowing around the house. Lee immediately realized that Evelyn was in danger and started running toward the house. Inside the basement, Evelyn was shaking with fear as the creature searched every corner of the house, trying to find her. At that moment, Evelyn showed remarkable presence of mind. She set a timer for a few seconds and placed it in one corner of the basement, then quickly hid herself in another corner. Soon, the creature sensed the movement and slowly moved toward the timer. It was now dangerously close to Evelyn. On one side, she was suffering from intense labor pain, and on the other, she faced the fear of death, yet she remained perfectly still and completely silent. Suddenly, the timer's alarm began to ring. The instant the creature heard the sound, it sprinted toward it at lightning speed. Seizing this opportunity, Evelyn quickly escaped from the underground basement, but as she stepped outside, she saw another creature roaming near the house. She immediately pressed herself against the wall and hid. All of this was being observed from a distance by Lee and Marcus. Lee realized that if he rushed directly to the house to save Evelyn, it could result in both of them being killed instead of saving her. The creature's body was far too strong to be destroyed by a gun, so Lee began to execute a plan he had prepared earlier. Lee quickly handed Marcus a flashlight and instructed him to activate the flare rockets that had been placed away from the house. Marcus ran toward the rockets. Meanwhile, Evelyn made her way upstairs and took shelter inside the bathtub in the bathroom. She was writhing in unbearable pain and could no longer hold back the delivery. Just then, the creature detected the faint sounds of her labored breathing and began moving toward the bathroom. Evelyn realized there was no way out this time. At that exact moment, Marcus fired the flare rockets. The sky lit up with blinding light and deafening noise. Hearing the sound, the creature immediately abandoned Evelyn and rushed toward the flares. Unable to endure the pain any longer, Evelyn screamed out loudly, but her scream was completely drowned out by the explosive sound of the rockets. From afar, Regan also saw the light and heard the disturbance. She realized something terrible was happening and immediately ran toward the house. After some time, Lee entered the house with a gun in his hand. He noticed bloodstains on the stairs and followed them up to the bathroom. There, he saw the bathtub filled with blood. Believing that Evelyn had been killed by the creature, Lee broke down in tears. Just then, a hand pressed against the glass of the shower room. Lee looked up and saw that it was none other than Evelyn herself. Despite the horrific circumstances, she had bravely given birth to a baby boy. Seeing Evelyn alive, Lee stood frozen in shock. Before the baby could start crying, Lee quickly picked up Evelyn and the newborn and rushed toward the underground room where the soundproof box had been prepared. But before they could enter the basement, the baby began to cry. Hearing the sound, the creature once again rushed toward them. Lee quickly sealed the basement door with a thick mattress. He immediately placed an oxygen mask on the baby and put him inside the soundproof box. As soon as the crying stopped, both Lee and Evelyn let out a sigh of relief. At that moment, Lee told Evelyn that he had discovered the creature's weakness. Very soon, he would be able to create a weapon that would prevent these terrifying monsters from harming them ever again. At the same time, elsewhere, Regan was walking back toward the house. Suddenly, she noticed a strange light glowing in the middle of a cornfield. Filled with curiosity and concern, Regan hurried toward the source of the light.
But Regan had no idea that the sound of her footsteps had drawn a creature silently closer behind her. Step by step, the monster crept nearer, ready to attack. At that exact moment, Regan's hearing device suddenly emitted a sharp, piercing, high-frequency sound. The screeching noise caused the creature to convulse violently. It seemed as if the sound was stabbing into its ears like needles. Unable to tolerate the unbearable frequency, the monster retreated in agony and quickly fled from the area. Although the piercing sound caused intense pain in Regan's own ears as well, the pain slowly faded once the creature was gone. However, Regan did not yet fully understand what had just happened. One question kept circling in her mind. Why had her hearing device suddenly produced such a strange and terrifying sound? And why had that very sound forced the creature to run away? Ignoring the incident and not giving it much thought, Regan reaches the source of the light. As she gets closer, she realizes that the light is coming from a flashlight. Just as Regan bends down to pick it up, someone suddenly grabs her hand. It turns out to be Marcus. He has been hiding there, trembling with fear. Seeing his sister, Marcus finally feels a sense of relief. Marcus tells Regan that he witnessed everything from behind the bushes. He explains, "A creature was coming right up behind you. Just when it was about to attack, it suddenly ran away for no clear reason." Hearing this, Regan becomes even more frightened because she had no idea that a monster had been following her so closely the entire time. Meanwhile, Evelyn becomes extremely worried about her children. She tells Lee that she is terrified something might have happened to them. She urges him to go out immediately and find the kids. Lee lays Evelyn and the newborn safely in the underground room and then rushes outside. Lee searches the surroundings for any sign of danger. Although the creature has already left the area, it has completely wrecked the house. One of the water pipes has broken and water is now flooding directly into the underground room. However, Lee fails to notice this and continues searching for his children in the fields. At the same time, Marcus and Regan are hiding on top of a large grain storage silo. They light a fire so that their father can spot the light and find them. Elsewhere, Lee keeps running around desperately, trying to locate his children. After some time, the sound of rushing water wakes Evelyn. She realizes that
The entire underground room is flooding. Water is pouring down like a waterfall. Suddenly, her eyes fall on the soundproof box meant for the baby. The box is open, yet there is no sound coming from inside. As Evelyn moves toward the box, she suddenly sees a creature standing right in front of her. Frozen in terror, she assumes the worst, that the monster may have already killed her child. Since the box is some distance away, she cannot see inside clearly to confirm whether the baby is still alive. Trembling with fear, Evelyn slowly approaches the box. At the same moment, the creature steps down into the water. When Evelyn finally reaches the box, she sees that her baby is completely safe and unharmed. Miraculously, the newborn has not made a single sound, and that silence has saved its life. Evelyn quickly picks up her baby and silently moves into a corner, standing perfectly still. The creature roams dangerously close to her. Even the faintest cry of the baby would mean certain death for both of them. Meanwhile, Regan and Marcus grow exhausted for waiting so long for their father. Regan begins to fear that their father may never come to save them. She decides to head back toward the house on her own. However, Marcus still has complete faith that their father will come. As Regan tries to leave, Marcus attempts to stop her. Just then, as he steps forward, the hatch of the grain silo opens beneath him, and Marcus falls inside. As he falls, a loud sound escapes his mouth. The moment that noise was made, the creature that had been searching for Evelyn inside the house immediately rushes toward the sound. Evelyn was spared for the moment, but Marcus's life is now in terrible danger. The grain-filled silo is like a swamp. The more Marcus struggles to escape, the deeper he sinks into the grain. At that moment, Regan showed incredible courage. She broke open the silo door and dumped grain inside. Then she jumped in herself. Just as Marcus was about to be swallowed by the grain, Regan grabbed him tightly and pulled him upward. Somehow, both of them managed to climb onto the door, and their lives were saved. But the noise they made did not go unnoticed. The creature heard the disturbance and charged through the field at full speed toward the silo. From a distance, Lee sees the creature heading straight toward the grain silo and realizes that his two children are there. Although Regan has managed to save Marcus's life, the danger is far from over. After all the noise and chaos, the shadow of death is now racing toward them at terrifying speed.
In the very next moment, the creature leaps down into the grain silo, moving in to kill Regan and Marcus. Just as it is about to attack, the sharp, piercing, high-frequency sound once again erupts from Regan's hearing device. The sound causes the monster unbearable pain. Thrashing violently in agony, it retreats without attacking and pulls away from them. Regan and Marcus narrowly escape death and quickly climb out of the silo. At that exact moment, Lee arrives there while searching for his children. Seeing them alive and unharmed, relief and joy flood his face. At the same time, Evelyn watches the entire scene unfold through the CCTV monitors. Within moments, Lee realizes that the creature is still lurking nearby. He immediately signals the children to run toward the truck parked in front of them. Then he grabs an axe and scans the surroundings cautiously. But before he can react, the terrifying creature suddenly appears right behind him. As Lee turns around, the monster strikes him with immense force and hurls him across the ground. Seeing his father writhing in pain, Marcus screams in terror. That scream instantly reveals Marcus's location, and the creature now charges toward Regan and Marcus. Just then, the piercing frequency begins blasting from Regan's hearing device once again. While the sound causes intense pain to the creature, it also becomes unbearable for Regan herself. Unable to endure the agony, she switches off the device. But this turns out to be the gravest mistake of her life. The frequency emitted by the hearing device was the creature's greatest weakness, the one sound it could not tolerate. By turning it off, Regan unknowingly invites death for herself and her brother. In the next instant, the monster lunges onto the truck and moves toward Marcus. Meanwhile, Lee slowly regains consciousness where he lies. Seeing his children in extreme danger, he realizes that fighting and killing the creature is impossible. There is only one path left before him. Through hand signals, Lee tells Regan that he loves her deeply. He tells her that he never blamed her for Beau's death, and that as long as he is alive, he will never allow anything to happen to her. After conveying this, Lee gathers all his remaining strength and lets out a loud scream. Hearing Lee's scream, the creature immediately rushes toward Lee. Within seconds, the monstrous being leaps onto Lee and brutally tears him apart. Watching her father die in this horrific way, Regan collapses in grief. Her heart is shattered with sorrow. All this time, she had believed that her father did not love
love her, but in sacrificing his own life to save his children, Lee proves beyond doubt how deeply and unconditionally he loved his daughter.
At that moment, Regan realizes she had been wrong all along. After Lee's death, the creature finally retreats for the moment. Meanwhile, Evelyn watches everything unfold from the CCTV room. Regan starts the car and, with Marcus by her side, drives swiftly back toward the house. Upon arriving, Evelyn rushes to embrace her children, relieved to see them alive and unharmed. But their moment of joy is fleeting. Through the distance, Evelyn notices the monstrous creature advancing toward them once again. Recognizing the imminent danger, they all quickly rush inside the house. Once inside, Marcus and Regan spot their newborn sibling. Regan notices the sheer effort her father had put into creating the cochlear implant for her, and this realization overwhelms her with emotion. She begins to deeply miss her father. Moments later, the terrifying monster bursts into the house. Evelyn raises her shotgun, standing firm, but she knows that the bullets cannot pierce the creature's thick, armored skin. In that instant, the looming image of their potential deaths fills the room. Just as the monster lunges toward them, Regan feels an intense, piercing pain in her ears. Simultaneously, the creature writhes violently in agony. Regan quickly realizes that the device in her ears, the very cochlear implant her father had crafted, has a profound effect on the creature. Memories of her father's research come rushing back, and she finally understands the high-pitched frequencies emitted by her cochlear implant are the creature's greatest weakness. Regan recalls that every time the monster approached, she experienced ear pain, and each time the creature fled. Acting swiftly, she increases the power on her implant, sending out an even more intense high-frequency sound. The effect is immediate and devastating. The monster writhes as though countless needles are piercing every inch of its body. Seeing this, Evelyn understands the key to defeating the creature lies in Regan's cochlear implant. However, the amplified frequency now causes Regan unbearable pain in her own ears. Thinking quickly, she connects the implant to a nearby microphone, multiplying the sound's intensity. The monster's condition becomes catastrophic. Its entire body convulses violently, and its hard armor begins to split open. The moment its face is exposed, Evelyn wastes no time. She fires her shotgun directly into the creature's skull. The impact is catastrophic, and the monster's skull bursts as if it were a fragile balloon, finally neutralizing the deadly threat. Finally, the monster was killed. However, the danger was not completely over. Hearing the gunfire, the other two monsters in the area began moving toward them, but now Evelyn and Regan knew the monster's weakness, so Regan turned up the microphone volume, and Evelyn got ready to take down the remaining monsters. And with that, the story ends. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to our channel. And if you want a second part of this movie, type part 2 in the comments below.